One of the richest men alive has pledged 346 million Oracle shares, about 30% of his entire stake in the company, as collateral for personal debt. That is straight from SEC filings. Larry Ellison, a man who could pay cash for almost anything on earth, chooses to owe money. Meanwhile, the debt the rest of the country knows best is a credit card charging about 21.5% a year, the current U.S. average according to the Federal Reserve. Same word, debt. One group is drowning in it, and the group with the most money keeps taking on more. To show you why, meet Marcus and Jay. They are made up, two fictional guides I use to make the machine visible. But every number they are about to run into is real, and I will name the source out loud each time. Because one question sits under this whole video. If debt ruins ordinary people, why do the people with the most money on earth use the most of it? You were probably taught that debt is dangerous. Jay was taught that too, and it is not a lie. It is half of the manual. The other half, the half about direction, almost never gets taught. That gap is not your fault, and it was never Jay's. It is a system that hands you the tool without the instructions. So this is not a story about heroes and fools. Jay is the default, and Marcus is not smarter, he just got to read the manual first. By the end, you will have the 4 mechanisms the wealthy run, each with a sourced number, plus the one part of the machine that videos like this skip. First, the tool itself. Picture a lever, a long bar resting on a pivot. A lever does exactly one thing. It takes the force you put in and multiplies it. And a lever has no opinion. Set it under a weight and it lifts. Point it the other way, and the same multiplication presses down on you. Debt is that lever. The finance industry admits it in its own vocabulary, because the formal word for using debt is leverage. And keep the physics in mind, because it is the honest part of this story. The longer the lever, the more it moves in both directions. We will come back to that. Mechanism 1 is the load-bearing fact underneath everything the wealthy do with debt. Miss this one, and none of the rest makes sense. Borrowed money is not income, so borrowed money is not taxed. Not at a lower rate, not taxed at all. And the logic is fair on paper. The tax code taxes money that makes you richer, and a loan does not, because for every dollar that lands in your account, you owe $1 back. Your net worth, everything you own minus everything you owe, does not move an inch when you borrow. Nothing got richer, so there is nothing to tax. Now watch what that rule does at the top. Say an investor is sitting on stock that has grown by $1 million, an illustrative number, just to make the tax visible. That growth is an unrealized gain, profit on paper that has not been sold yet. Road 1. Sell the stock. Selling turns paper gains into taxable gains. And at the top, federal rate that is 20% capital gains tax plus a 3.8% net investment income tax, 23.8 cents on every dollar of gain per the Bipartisan Policy Center. With the assumptions on screen, an illustrative $1 million of gain at the top bracket 23.8%, that sale sends roughly $238,000 to the IRS. Road 2. Keep the stock and borrow the same million against it instead. Same amount in the account, spends exactly the same. Tax bill, 0. Same wealth, same spending power, and one road hands nearly a quarter of it to the tax office while the other hands over nothing. And this is not a loophole someone snuck in at midnight. It is the definition of income working exactly as written. Jay hears that and asks the obvious question. Fine, but a loan charges interest. So how is paying interest better than paying tax? Hold that question. It is where the machine gets clever, and Mechanism 4 pays it off. Mechanism 2 is the direction rule, and it decides whether the exact same tool builds you or buries you. What the borrowed money buys is everything. Look at Jay's end of the lever first, because it is the end the system mails to your house. The average credit card in America right now charges about 21.5% APR per Federal Reserve G19 data, and APR means the yearly interest rate on what you owe. That card debt almost always points at consumption. Dinners, gadgets, gaps in the month. Things worth less tomorrow than today, or worth nothing at all. So Jay's lever presses down twice at once. The thing he bought is losing value, while the debt on it compounds at around 21.5% against him. Compounding means the interest itself starts earning interest. Now flip the lever and let Marcus, the fictional half of our pair, Stand in for the other direction. Marcus carries debt too, but his is attached to things that can pay him or grow, the same pattern the wealthy run at 1,000 times the size. Same tool, opposite direction. Debt attached to what costs you multiplies the cost. Debt attached to what pays can multiply what it pays, and the lever itself never changes. Only the way it points. And notice, nobody in that comparison was smarter. Jay was never taught to check the direction, because every offer that reaches him, the cards, the financing, the pay later buttons, points the same way. That is the sting, and it is also the setup. Because once you know direction is everything, the next question is what the wealthy point the lever at. And mechanism 3 has the number that surprised me most. Quick pause, one sentence. If real, sourced numbers instead of guru math is what you came here for, subscribe, because this channel takes apart one money machine like this every week, calm and sighted. And stay put, because the two mechanisms left are the ones the wealthy actually built the playbook on. Here is 3. Mechanism 3. The wealthy never have to sell what they own to spend what it is worth. The tool is called a securities-backed line of credit, an SBLOC, and it is what it sounds like. A credit line where an investment portfolio is the collateral. Collateral means the thing the lender can take if you stop paying. A mortgage pledges a house. An SBLOC pledges a stock portfolio. And the scale is bigger than most people guess. According to FINRA, the regulator that oversees U.S. brokerage firms, these lines typically let investors borrow between 50 and 95% of the value of the portfolio they pledge. Which brings back Larry Ellison from the opening. Those 346 million Oracle shares were pledged, in the words of the SEC filings, to secure certain personal indebtedness. His stock stayed invested, and lenders extended credit against it. His shares were never sold, so no gain was ever realized, so Mechanism 1 takes over. The cash he raised arrived as loans, not income, and loans are not taxed. But a loan still has to be repaid someday, right? That is Jay's interest question from earlier, and Mechanism 4 is the answer. It has a name coined by a law professor, and its final step only works after you die. Mechanism 4 is called buy, borrow, die. That is not my dramatic label. The term was coined by Professor Edward McCaffrey of the USC Gould School of Law to describe the strategy exactly as it is practiced. Step 1. Buy. They acquire assets that tend to grow, businesses, stocks, buildings, and they hold them. They never sell, because selling is the taxable event. Step 2. Borrow. When they want money to live on, they borrow against those assets, exactly like Mechanism 3. The loans fund the lifestyle, the loans are not income, and year after year, the income on the tax return stays small. The first half of the answer to Jay's question comes straight from the Bipartisan Policy Center's comparison. Selling surrenders up to 23.8% of the gain immediately and permanently, while borrowing costs interest for a time and leaves the asset in place, still working. And step 3, die, is the second half, because this is where the loop closes. It hangs on one rule in the tax code, section 1014. The step-up in basis. Basis means the purchase price the tax code holds you to. When an owner dies, the law resets the basis of their assets to the market value on the day of death. Follow what that does. Decades of gain that was never sold and never taxed is simply erased from the tax ledger, because the heirs are treated as if they bought everything at today's price. The estate can then sell at that stepped-up basis with little or no capital gains tax due, clear the loans, and pass on the rest, per the same Bipartisan Policy Center explainer. The gains were spent through loans while alive, and the tax on them never came due for anyone. Buy, borrow, die. Each step legal, each step public record, each step ordinary on its own. Chained together, they let spending happen without income ever appearing. Now the receipts. In 2021, ProPublica published what it titled The Secret IRS Files, Leaked Tax Records of the Wealthiest Americans. The finding: from 2014 to 2018, the 25 richest Americans grew their combined wealth by $401 billion and paid federal income tax equal to about 3.4% of that growth. ProPublica calls that the true tax rate, tax paid measured against wealth gained rather than against reported income. And the Tax Policy Center points at the fuel behind numbers like that. The top 1% are carrying over $1 trillion of borrowing, unlocking the value of their gains without ever triggering the tax that selling would. $1 trillion of lever pointed the profitable way, resting on filings, rulebooks, and the tax code itself. That is the machine, fully assembled. And this is usually where videos like this stop, roll the confident music, and hint that you should go copy it. This is where we do the opposite. Here is the half they skip. Go back to the lever and the physics we flagged at the start. The longer the lever, the more it moves, in both directions. Borrowing against assets is a very long lever. FINRA, the same regulator that published that 50 to 95% figure, attaches explicit warnings to these credit lines, and they deserve to be heard in full. If markets fall and the pledged portfolio drops in value, the lender can demand more collateral or repayment, typically within just 2 or 3 days. That demand is called a maintenance call, and because these are demand loans, it arrives on the lender's schedule, not yours. And if the call cannot be met, FINRA warns the firm can sell some or all of your securities to cover the loan, often without giving you any notice. That is forced to liquidation. Notice the timing built into that. The lever forces a sale exactly when prices are down, turning a paper loss into a real one, and the forced sale itself can trigger the very taxes the whole structure was built to avoid. That is why leverage multiplies ruin as efficiently as it multiplies gains. The direction of the lever can flip without your permission, because markets move and the debt does not. Now the honest difference of scale. Ellison pledged about 30% of his Oracle stake, which means roughly 70% stood unpledged behind it as cushion, alongside everything else a billionaire owns and a team paid to watch it daily. A normal household running the same physics has none of that cushion. The most available lever at kitchen table scale is the roughly 21.5% card pointed at consumption, which is the pressing down direction by design. So let me say it plainly. This video is not telling you to borrow against anything, ever. It is a map of a machine that exists, drawn from sources. So the word debt stops being a mystery in your life. Because the map works at any scale. Every debt you will ever meet, card, car, mortgage, business loan, can be read with one question. Which direction does this lever point? What did the debt buy? And does that thing pay me or cost me? Is it holding value while I owe on it or shrinking? And how long is the lever, meaning what happens to me if it swings the wrong way? Jay never got to ask those questions, and that was never his failing. Every offer that found him pointed one way, and nobody handed him the manual. Now you have it. One last honest note. Everything here is a U.S. rulebook as of 2026, written into a tax code that Congress debates and can rewrite. Real today, sourced today, never guaranteed to stay bolted the same way. Debt was never magic and never a monster. It is a lever. It has no loyalty, and it multiplies whichever direction it is pointed, for a billionaire and for the card in a wallet. So tonight, take one debt you carry and ask it the only question that matters. Which way do you point? That single question is most of the manual. If this made the machine finally make sense, subscribe. One real money system a week, every number sourced, no hype. See you in the next one.